Some people may say parenting is one of the most challenging and rewarding parts of human life. With that being said, parenting is one of the most stressful things we can do as adult humans, and it's expected that mistakes will be made. Many people are living life with an open wound and don't realize it yet. That open wound is called a mother wound. If you're familiar with this term, this episode will be a treat for you. If you're someone who doesn't know what a mother wound means, stay tuned because Kristina and I, your host Sam Aiko, has you covered with an in-depth breakdown on what a mother wound is and how to identify and conquer it. As a life coach, Kristina loves exploring the topic of mother wound healing and how it impacts the sense of self-worth and confidence in women. Whether it's how we show up in business, relationships, or parenthood, our mother wound is often the underlying issue of our insecurities and self-doubt. We live in a psychologically aware times, and yet mother wounds are still a taboo topic. It's Kristina's personal mission to talk about it candidly and open to help other women feel like they're not alone with their gaping mother wound. If you don't want to miss out, subscribe and bookmark this episode and share with a loved one who may benefit from Kristina's wisdom. Kristina, it's an honor to meet you, and thank you for making it your mission to help those who are suffering. Can you tell us where you're from?
Sure. I'm so excited to be here, by the way. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm in London. I live in London with my family, my husband, my son, and our little cat lady, whom we often call Catastrophe, because she's just that kind of a cat. But I've only been living in London for the past 8 years now. I'm originally from Russia, and I grew up in Moscow. So first 25 years of my life, I spent there, and this is essentially my motherland.
That's beautiful. Amazing. How was it like transitioning from Russia to London?
It was so weirdly easy for me because I never quite felt like home in Moscow, and I can't quite explain it. It just felt really weird. And the moment, like literally the moment I just not even moved to London, like visited London to begin with, it just like I all of a sudden realized what it's like not to be suffocated. It just felt more creative and more like me, and it just felt like home since day one. I also moved to London for love, so it kind of, straight away I felt like home.
That's lovely. I'm so happy that you feel so at home. That's such a beautiful gift to have. Can you tell us more about your mission and your service?
Sure. So I'm a certified life coach and coach supervisor, and I have been for the past 4 years. In my work, I primarily work with women who have had or are currently experiencing challenging relationships with their mother, or want to overcome certain insecurities and self-doubt that stems from their relationship with their mother, and they just want to become the author of their life. And that's essentially the name of my coaching practice: become the author of your life.
Kristina, can you tell us what is a mother wound?
Sure. So in very simple terms, before we go and talk in more psychological terms, but in very simple terms, it's in a way unhealthy relationship with yourself. So things like lack of confidence, very strong inner critique, self-doubt, feeling unclear about who you are, what you want, and where do you want to be. Like a lot of women struggle with career choices or what kind of partner they desire or would be good and suitable for them, because they first and foremost don't quite understand themselves to begin with. And that often comes from not feeling, or part of us not feeling seen, heard, and understood in childhood. And so once we unpack that and realize where the gap was, we can start feeling it and becoming the woman that we needed as a girl. And that is becoming our healing process.
Is there a difference between a father wound and a mother wound?
Yes, in a way that it impacts women and men differently. So I'm speaking purely from my professional experience here. For women, it's important to address mother wound first and foremost, and then address father wound if they in fact have it. So maybe the way it shows up in their life is having difficulty to establish trust and good relationship with their partner. Maybe it's thinking that they need to um, like have more masculine energy in order to succeed in their careers. Hopefully that makes sense. So like compete with others, like being in the race and play by man's rule. And that's very common because we look at people who succeed, who are the top of the top in terms of career, and we're like, okay, so if I do what he does, I will succeed as well. And that doesn't quite work for women, I'm afraid. And for men, it's different. For men, I believe it's important for them to address father wound first and foremost. And then if there is the presence of mother wound, then address that as well. And the reason why I'm saying this is because when we grow up, around the age of between 3 and 5 years old, we kind of realize that we realize our agenda. We realize that, oh, I'm a girl, so I'm like mommy. And my brother is a boy, so when he grows up, he's going to be like daddy. And this is the moment where we start observing our mother's way of being, how she speaks, how she deals with challenges, um, everyday moments, how she cooks. When she cleans the apartment, the house, does she do so lovingly, or is it maybe her way of release the rage and anger, some other emotions? Does
Mhm.
she spend quality time with us? Do we see her spending time on self-care and actually taking care of her body, her soul, socializing with other friends, with other women, and actually supporting them, encouraging them, and empowering them rather than gossiping about them behind their back? We observe and we absorb like sponges when we're kids, especially when we realize that I'm a girl, which means when I grow up, I'm going to be like mommy.
That this I'm so interested in this topic because I told you earlier, like I lost my mom in 2020, and I have a
Yeah.
major mother wound with my birth mom. And when I say birth
Mm.
moms, I have a unique case. I was raised by lesbian parents.
Yeah.
So I have two moms, and I completely don't have like a father male figure, anyone to identify with. And so identify with the inner critic, and I've witnessed my mom have to, like, have that like, concept of working in a man's world, and at her
Mm.
time of work, she was a correction officer, worked in law enforcement. It was very male dominated and competitive for her, and so when you were describing these things, I was curious about her mother wound, father wound, because she had a mom and dad, and I wonder
Mm.
how that influenced her choices in career and how she behaved, and I love this because this topic brings consideration on so many levels. It's so much easier not to be upset and take these things personally and forgive our parents when we see that they're really just like us, but 50 years, 50 generations, like a few generations before us. So it's like when we could not be so critical and read the facts, it's easier to process. And I think that's where a lot of the healing comes from with your work.
I love that you're saying that. Well, first of all, I love how open and transparent you are about your own unique cases. You said having two moms. I'm so sorry to hear that you lost your birth mom a couple of years ago. Um, you're absolutely right about like one thing. I think you hit the head on. La la la. What's the word?
Nail on the head.
There we go. Thank you so much for saving me from the embarrassing blah, blah, blah. But you just described essentially the essential element of every healing journey, and that's actually kind of taking your parent off the pedestal and viewing their history as another fellow human being. Because very often we continue viewing our parents from the child's position. And what does it look like? It means that I have certain expectations of you. You owe me this, you owe me that. Because when we are in a child's position, we can't take care of ourselves. My 4-year-old can't take care of himself. Like I have to be there to remind him, go brush your teeth, make sure you do this, make sure you shower your body and keep it nice and clean. Because he won't be able to do that for himself. He's still learning how to take care of himself. Whereas, and so there is a lot of sometimes the energy of I have expectations of you, and some expectations were not met. and some of my needs were not met because a part of me didn't feel safe, seen, or understood. You didn't pay attention to my drawings, although that was my talent, and I wish I was able to develop it or something like this. That's just an example. But when we all of a sudden kind of shift our perspective and we're like, hang on a second, how about I look at my parents' story from essentially day one and I imagine them as a 6-year-old girl, what kind of what her parents were like? What did she learn about what it's like to love and be loved and feel seen and heard and understood? What was she told? And when we do that, and that's actually, there is a number of special techniques that can be done in the healing capacity, in the coaching capacity. That one of them is storytelling, another one is visualize, and another one is kind of like putting you into meditative state to kind of like really visualize it and feel like you're there. And all of a sudden you realize towards the end that your parents or your mother specifically gave you the best she could. And yes, the best she could perhaps was not quite enough for what you wanted, but she did her best. And that should be enough for you. The rest is your lesson, your soul evolution, your challenge to embrace in order to mature in this world. I love that you're saying this.
I love what you said too, and it warms my heart. And this is what we need to hear because I can see from what I'm learning now, we tend to mimic our models. And
Mm,
if we felt these expectations from our mothers and parents, I could totally see us reenacting these expectations with our relationships with our partners.
mm,
Because personally, when I was saying that, I was thinking like, wow, maybe I show these behaviors like what expectations my mother has in my relationships. Like I catch myself saying, well, maybe why wouldn't he do it like this? Like
mm.
my version of it. And I catch myself before I, you know, act up and realize this is a whole nother person who doesn't know my history as well as I do, at least viscerally. Um,
Yeah.
and same with him, like he has a different upbringing. How can I expect these things? So I love
Mm.
that this is breaking it down and making it
Yeah.
digestible.
You know what this reminds me of, real quick, is there is, it's an old kind of saying that we tend to marry our fathers. But the reality is, our first relationships or our first serious relationship is usually us dating our mother with the unconscious desire to resolve the issues that we had experienced with our mothers. So it's like, and when you tell that to women, oftentimes they realize, oh my God, yes, like they often say, I had such a great relationship with my dad. I have no idea how I ended up in what I am right now. And then, well, great, but have you ever addressed the underlying issue? For women specifically, it is mother wounds because, yes, we think we tend to marry our fathers, but actually, we need to resolve the challenges with our mothers first. Otherwise, we'll take them to the next relationship unconsciously. And hey, well done to your self awareness. And this is something that we often take for granted, especially when we're further on in our healing journey. Like what you said, I catch myself in the moment before I act up. That's the sign of healing journey A, and B, psychological maturity to become this kind observer of your own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors and realize, hey, I'm noticing something's happening here. Like, and then you just start engaging with your behaviors before you react rather than consciously respond.
Yes, it's CBT is a gift. The only reason why I was able to
Mm,
pause is out for a while. I was an ABA practitioner. I was doing behavioral analysis, and then I found CBT when my mom passed away. I was trying to figure out because all the behaviors that I didn't resolve with my mother all surfaced like a volcano when she passed away because
mm.
I didn't get to have the resolution that I was yearning for, like you spoke about. Like you're like hitting it. You're such a great professional. 'Cause you're really like getting me. Like I feel so understood, and we're not even like I'm not trying to make this about what I'm going through, but more for our audience. But I'm relating to it so much.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the cognitive behavioral, like understanding like how our thoughts inspire our behaviors and how our behaviors may trigger some thoughts.
And it's all interconnected, and you all of a sudden you realize, oh, there are so many elements I can engage with and wrestle with and play with and actually communicate and let go of the idea of control, but befriend them so that you stop fighting the unnecessary war. And that's the inner conflict, the fighting against yourself and your nature and your essence and perhaps your reactions that you learned by observing others. Those were written for you, but you do have the power to alter them, completely rewrite, and just be aware of them and not use if you don't want to.
I love this, and I can see how this could feed faith and hope and in a self way. Like a lot of times, and I love religion. I'm a spiritual person, but I realized during a lot of these very hard times in my life, I could never pray away my feelings or pray away my troubles, but I can have faith in how I can handle it and how I can cope, and faith in my ability to be there as a support for myself, not to crumble away. And I think like, what you're speaking into is essential for beginning a self-care practice, because I know like in pop culture right now, they make it sound like it's such common sense what self-care looks like, but it's truly unique to the individual and what our body needs and what we've been through and healing relived trauma. And I love what you do, because our audience can hear it here. The first thing we should look at is our mother wounds, and it affects our attitude, and our attitude is how we look at life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like finally when you address your mother wound, if that's in fact speaks to you, it's not like everybody should do it. I honestly I love this work. I think it would be beneficial for everybody. But at the same time, there has to be a part of you that it just speaks to and you feel drawn to it and it just tickles something and you're like, okay, there is something in it for me and I'm going to trust the pull. I'm going to trust the intuition. And because this work, it's like finally receiving that manual that you never had. But what was written for me, because if we look at works of Eric Berne, the father of transactional analysis, like everything we hear like during the first 7 years of our lives becomes our inner voice, or at the very least heavily impacts and influences it. So very often we have that voice that tells us, who are you even to apply for this job or ask for more money or think that you're better than this person or that you can be with this guy or that you can be likable enough to go online and start your own business or that you can make a living out of your art and paintings, for example. Who are you to do this? You are not that enough, or yada yada yada. And oftentimes those are thoughts that are just like all the voices in our heads, and we don't always understand the origins, the source of that. And it's very liberating to realize that this voice was not even yours to begin with, and you can actually stop identifying with it. And logically, it makes sense when we hear this, and yet it does take time and inner work and specific practitioners to work with, or specific approaches like perhaps CPD would be very useful as well, and just work with someone to unpack and separate from those voices so that you can engage with them in a kind of detached manner.
That's perfect. Can you tell us the moment you realized you had a mother wound and how you approached it?
Sure. Oh, a sigh. So, the moment I realized I had a mother wound is the moment where I finally had the language, the term of mother wound introduced to me. Before that, I had spent years, lots of time, lots of money, lots of efforts on things like confidence coaching, working on my self-esteem, public speaking. I was really struggling with unlocking my voice. I'm a soft-spoken person naturally, but I was really struggling to voice my boundaries, to voice my needs, to actually know them in the first place. And so I was working on all of those things, and they did have some impact and effect, and life was getting better, and it was helping me in my career progression. It was helping me in my relationships, and not only romantic relationships, but friendships with other women as well, because at times I was finding that women would start to compete with me, and I would react and respond to that, and I would start competing with them as well. And I was like, is there, an option in this universe where I can just be like, friends with other women so that we support each other instead of competing and, just being a little bit snidey without any good reason whatsoever. And it wasn't until I think I was about 27 years old, so quite late, like it was 6 years ago. And I was working with this psychologist, and she had her mother wound as well. So she was going through this journey, and she was like, of course you're struggling with this because you're not addressing the underlying issue. And she was very direct. She was, I believe she was practicing the Gestalt approach, which is very provocative, very playful, and I love it. And for me, that was the aha moment, because I finally had the language around it, the understanding that this is something that is a very, very real issue. For some reason, not that mainstream. And so once I got the language around it, I just knew a very specific kind of support that I needed, specific books, practitioners. And this is why my number one recommendation always, if you decide to go on a healing journey with someone, always pick a practitioner who experienced that themselves and done their healing. And you can, like right now you were saying, like, I feel like you get me. This is how you feel in the room with a practitioner who've been on the same path, and like, of course I get you. I might not even say the right thing or like say something specific for it, but I just get you because I was on this journey.
And you know what? I feel safe. That's a big thing. Like your presence feels very like I could be vulnerable. Like, and I think that's a gift because there's not a lot of people in the world where like I could look at them and be like, I feel a little teary-eyed. My inner child feels seen. So I love that.
It's wonderful to hear. It's such a gift for me to hear this as well, and also such a gift to your audience, because maybe we don't realize, but actually us women openly sharing our story and how we feel and how we experience mother wound, it opens the door. I got goosebumps as I'm saying this, but it opens the door for others, and it kind of grants them this unspoken permission to speak up and finally unblock their throat chakra, because a lot of healing around mother wound happens around throat chakra. Speak your truth, the way it is, because mother wound is a taboo topic. Don't speak badly about your mother. Don't be an ungrateful child. All around those things, she had it badly. You're just not realizing how tough it was for her. All of the things that make us feel bad about not just even challenging, but mildly questioning our mother's methods, which is a very natural part of growing and becoming an adult.
How can having a mother wound impact our daily lives?
In so many ways. But starting with lack of clarity, lack of self-understanding, I would say. Who am I? What is good for me? What am I here for? So in daily life, like, should I go there? Should I go to this party? Should I go out with this guy? Like, we almost lack this inner guidance that makes us, like, kind of guides us, like helps us to make decisions, because we don't understand what's good for us. I would say self-doubt. Do I look okay? Can I do this? So something that you mentioned earlier on is having this self-efficacy. No matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. And that's this inner resourcefulness that I have me, which means I'm in the best company ever, and together we can handle anything. And that is essentially your inner mother speaking. So I would say Lack of confidence, self-doubt is number 2. Oh, never feeling like enough. I would just put them all together because different people associate with different language. And the third sign, I would say, lack of this inner resourcefulness. You know, when the universe serves you a challenge on a silver platter and you crumble instead of, and you wait for someone to come and rescue you. I see this as resonating versus going, you know what, this is tough, admittedly, but I am tougher. I have survived 100% of challenging situations in my life so far. I have these resources and inner qualities. And it's like, it's our inner mother saying, you're going to be fine. You know, you've been there before. You keep falling when you were learning to walk, and that's okay. And the first attempts, you learning how to feed yourself, your food was all over the place, but you have learned. So you have the capacity to learn and get better and overcome anything that's coming your way. When we don't have that strong inner mother's voice inside ourselves, which can be cultivated through inner mother wound healing work, we then remain within our inner child's voice, which is helpless. Can't take responsibility because that's not the child's. Responsibility doesn't live in the realm of inner child, and we just feel helpless.
So I saw a little that you're into human design, and I love it. And
Yay.
so I'm a Pisces and a generator. So with those,
Wow.
yeah, with those, like, being assertive and structured is the opposite of my nature, but I definitely function more like a Virgo, but nowadays. So, that helplessness was very, innate for me. It was a behavior that I had majority of my life that I'm still working on, and I think I got to the point of where I am now on this podcast speaking with you from actually, like, owning those qualities and learning how to not criticize them, but deal with it and kinda just do things even though I feel anxious about it, and I learned that I had to, like, because my mother wound affected me, and I didn't even have the vocabulary when I was healing it. So despite I love that you're here because I met a lot of people during my journey that have one too, and I learned that I had to change the voice in my head because I noticed it was my mom yelling at me and stuff when I feel like I might be when I'm in the middle of making a decision, having strict parents always telling me what to do, and if I didn't, I was like I was feeble-minded in some way, like and so I would be pressured my first time, like, moving out of the house, making decisions because 'cause I'm like, I don't trust myself because I was called certain things my whole life that made me feel like I wasn't worthy of making these choices, and I had to replace my old inner dialogue, like my mother's voice in my head, to the mother I want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, took everything that I wish I had and be like, "Look, I don't wanna mimic my mom's. I did see myself even though I didn't like these qualities, I saw them within myself without me noticing it. Why do you think a lot of times we're blindsided to us behaving in ways that we wouldn't wanna receive?
Yeah, it's because our mothers are our first teachers, and we see the world through our mother's eyes.
Mhm.
And for you, it was like two universes. You were observing both of your mothers around you and receiving directives and programs from them about who you are, what the world is like, what the world is like for women specifically, what is your role in this world, what are you good at, what are you not good at, and all of those things. And we absorb them and we take them for granted, and it becomes part of our life script, which is written during the first 7-8 years, and then it gets a little bit corrected until we're about 12. And then here's the funny thing. I think you're going to love it. I think all of the listeners are going to love it. So, I love science. I love finding evidence and proof in psychology and like studying different teachers. It kind of brings me this comfort. And since we talked about human design, it's a classic line 1 desire to like absorb and be that knowledge, truth and knowledge seeker. So I'm that seeker. And Eric Byrne said that once this script is written, so these are the rules that were written for you, who you are in this world and how you're going to live your life, then between about 12 years old and until about 30, we don't follow that script. We kind of develop and mature in our own way, but then something clicks and happens around the 30-year-old mark, give or take couple 2-3 years. Now if we look at in astrology, that's called Saturn return, which starts when we are like 28, 29 years old and then finalizes about like 30, 31. And this is where massive identity shifts are happening. And we are presented with that inner conflict, inner choice. Who are you going to be in this world? Are you going to be sleepwalking and repeating the pattern? Or are you going to be breaking the cycle? And this is the challenge for our soul to mature and become our own unique person. And I love finding those coincidences and similarities in completely different fields of work, whether it's psychology, which is very, very like science based and evidence based, and astrology, which is very spiritual. And as Pisces, I believe you would definitely resonate with spiritual methodologies as well. And in zodiac, you are the one who is closest to the mysterious invisible forces in our lives as Pisces. I'm an Aquarius, by the way, so I'm not that far from you. Yeah, and my North Node is in Pisces, so I'm here to actually, in this lifetime, I'm here to embrace the Pisces way of being. So it's good to be in your company.
Likewise, my it's one of the houses that say like your like soul connections. Mine lands in Aquarius. I always
Oh,
find that I love like I always feel at home with Aquarius for some.
that's so amazing to hear. Yay.
Thank you. One of these days I would love to do an episode with you about human design because it's not something a lot of
Mm.
people know about.
Let's do it. I'm a projector because I'm here to usher in a new paradigm, and I'm here to specifically serve generators and money gens as well. So maybe this is why we vibe.
This is a complete honor. I would love to work with you on your mission. I would love to be one of your generators because it's my nature. A lot of my friends would see, like, my supportive nature and be like, "Why don't you do something, yourself?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I just feel like I wanna be a soldier. I don't wanna be the
Hmm.
commander." But, I love this podcast. I get to help share your message, and I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, beautiful journey and a mission for you.
So I know we spoke about this generally with our other questions, but for the audience to really hone in and objectify this, how are mother wounds created?
Mm. Well, essentially in our childhood, through our early childhood interactions with our mothers. And hey, sometimes, mm, like the classic example to think of is mother was emotionally absent. She perhaps didn't have resources, time to attend or desire to attend to her own healing to break the cycle. This is why she kind of repeated the cycle. She just gave and she treated her child in the only way that she knew, and that kind of passed down from her mother. So this is one of the classic examples what we see in movies and stories that people share. But sometimes things that happen outside of our control. And I have a friend whose mother was in a car accident when she was just 9 months old. So my friend was 9 months old, and her mother was in a car accident, and so her mother spent a very long time in the hospital and couldn't be there for her. Now that wound has a bit of a different structure, different texture, because this is a relationship with something we cannot predict and cannot control. And it's a very humbling position, and it's there to challenge our humility that, yes, we can manage certain things about our lives and do our part and do our best, but also work on accepting what is and what is coming our way. So it's kind of like the balance of both. I, as I'm thinking about it, I went on a tangent there. So what was the question again?
How are mother How are mother wounds created?
Oh, yes, apologies. So in childhood, through interactions with our mother, and when our mother gave her best in the way that only she knew how to do something in terms of upbringing, meeting our physical needs, but also emotional needs. And hey, like 30, 40 years ago, parenthood was all about physical needs.
Mhm.
Life was tougher in so many ways. Like right now, we can actually work from home and be with our children more. But back in the day, that wasn't even an option for many, many parents out there. So if a child's physical needs were met, they were clean, their teeth were brushed, they were reminded to have shower every day, they were well fed, um, child was not malnourished, then literally killer parenting. But now we become more and more aware of emotional needs of our children, and it's great. It's great that we're more aware, and parents have way more resources to operate with in order to educate themselves how to be with their children rather just do something for them and off you go and play and leave me alone, I'm tired, or I want to watch football, or I want to read my book, or just I don't have time for you, or something like this. But at the same time, this awareness and this access to all this kind of information makes my generation of parents go, hang on a minute. Why wasn't I given all this attention and like all this? How was your day? What was the best thing that happened at school today? And all of these wonderful things. Like I'm cooking with my son. He just showed clear interest in cooking when he was 2 years old, and I was like, oh my God, I have a choice right now. I have a choice, and I can tell him this is too dangerous for you to be near the cooker, and go and play with your trains. This is mommy's going to do the cooking. I don't want you to be here because this is dangerous. Or I could say, okay, so I'm just going to let you know that this is fire. It's really hot. It can burn your skin. So if you want to be here, like, let's create some distance. You can stand on a chair here and just talk to him through what I'm doing. I'm frying meatballs, I'm boiling spaghetti, I'm adding a bit of salt. It's yummy, yummy. Don't touch this. This is a knife. It's very sharp. And so this is what I did. And now he's like really into cooking. It's been 2 years now. He's genuinely interested. I don't know whether he's just going to be really good husband material in a
Aw.
few years, or maybe become a chef. I have no idea. But that was like a challenge for me at the time. Am I going to repeat the cycle like my mother, just send him away? Or say even worse, like I know I wouldn't, but it was still an option to say like, oh, don't you worry about it, just find yourself a partner, she will do all the cooking for you. And I ain't raising a man like this. So yes, that was a bit of an example and a bit of a tangent, but essentially yes, early childhood interactions, what we learn about ourselves and the world around us. And sometimes, very often, to be honest, our needs being unmet, whether they're physical or emotional. And also not feeling seen in your very early authentic interests and desires, things like drawing, cooking, dressing yourself. Some children, they show very, very early what they're into, and sometimes mothers are tired, exhausted, or unattentive to notice and mirror that back to them and reflect, oh, I see you're really interested in this. How about I try and support it as much as I can?
Yes, it's a new age. It's the age of Aquarius, and you're totally right.
Yay.
Because back when I was being raised by my parents, it's it was incredibly stressful, and it wasn't a time of age where right now I'm, like, helping my sister with her baby and
Mm.
my niece, I love her so much. And
Oh.
the great thing is about technology today is that when we have to get work done or if we need a nap or a minute, we can use technology to entertain our youth. I of course there's stigmas to it, there's cons and pros and it shouldn't be like the kids being raised by the television, but it does allow us a moment to get that pause. I know when my parents were raising me, it was mayhem stress because they were both working, and then you have school, and then I had learning disabilities, and I needed extra tutoring, and we all 3 girls all needed attention. Then we all hit
Mm.
puberty around the same time, and my
Oh my
other
God.
parent my other parent was out at work almost every day. We never saw her. Like, she would be gone for days. And so, like, granted, we have our mother wounds, but for the audience here, like, we can't be too hard on our parents. Like, times are different now. Things were so hard back then that if you had a minute to spend time with your kids, you're probably really stressed and you're not your best self. And that's where it goes into what you were saying, that parents need to make time to work on themselves too. And so we could be the best for the children to come, because they are stressful. They're meant to be. They're new to the world. And it's our job to be able to regulate that stress.
Absolutely. I love that you're auntie, by the way. I can totally see you being this really cool auntie. And yes, you're absolutely right. And, having this realization that actually our parents had it quite hard and so many things were not available at the time. Like, even when I think back to my grandmother, she didn't have a washing machine. I can't imagine not having a washing machine. I have a washing machine, a dishwasher, I have a microwave, I have a slow cooker, so many things just to help me with like day-to-day activities. But even just 3 generations back, that was not possible, that was not available. And the tricky thing about these realizations, and what I noticed in my practice and actually in my personal story as well, is that this realization, although like intellectually we understand it, but during, especially in the very like in I would say in the first part of the healing journey, this realization doesn't always penetrate our being. We can't quite fully let it in, because I remember how it was very much the case for me, and how it's very much the case for women who are, they still need to let go and release anger, release, those hidden, maybe even expectations. Why didn't you talk to me about sex? Why didn't you educate me how to take care of myself during my monthly period? Why didn't you tell me about, there's a lot of like, why didn't you love me the way that I wanted you to love me? And once, I think the first part is releasing that first and foremost. And then all of a sudden, all those realizations that we've heard before, they start penetrating our being, and they get massaged into that soil that actually is way more, what's the word? I don't know. It's just, it's more acceptable. It's more like, you can now work with it. And this is why I recommend working with practitioners who have been on their motherhood healing journey, because I heard some horror stories how people go to therapy and sometimes what they hear is like, past is in the past, it's no use addressing it right now, you should focus on your life, or and or almost even like, why are you still talking about this? It's like it just does not feel good. And it kind of even shuts us even more. And again, coming back to throat chakra and blocking, um, I think ideally we're allowed first to protest, and it's not about like completely just, oh, let's just get all together and do some mother bashing and that is it. No, no, no. But it's about actually speaking your truth for once and for all. This is my experience, and this is how it felt for me, and it's not pretty. I don't want to hold it anymore, because it is a weight that's weighing me down, and I want to release it. And once we release it, we actually create capacity within ourselves to accept other truths, and actually go on a journey of discovering, okay, so what was my mother's life was like when she was a kid? What did she learn about herself, and about how to be loved and how to show love to others? So yeah, just like a little tangent that kind of like, if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm talking to listeners right now, and you're like, why can't I quite embrace it and own it and like truly feel it? It's because maybe there's like needs the first step needs to be taken. And don't make yourself wrong for not quite embracing certain things. That's absolutely fine. Just release first, and then the magic will happen.
If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. So download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Yes, I love that you meant. I think a big part of that release is getting the validation that you never got from your parents. And sometimes your parents will never give you that validation because they never got it themselves. But what we can do is that we can ask, like, this is something that helped me, is asking my mom questions about her childhood and also
Mm.
realizing how it sounds nightmarish to compare because of the luxury we live in.
Yeah.
And that makes me really humble down and just realize that whatever I notice is meant for me to use as a tool. It's not meant for me to crucify anybody else, because even when I have my own kids, I'll have my own problems too. And I'm sure they'll feel the same exact way I felt. But, with that being said, it makes it easier to love and receive love in a very sensitive, raw area.
Yeah. I think you've just touched on something really important that a lot of people, like a lot of women who desire to become mothers at some point, or are already mothers, or maybe pregnant right now and freaking out a little bit. Oh my God, like, am I going to turn into my mom all of a sudden when I have a baby? Because it's a very, very real concern that many women share. Um, and yeah, the transition from maiden to mother, so to speak, can serve as a trigger for mother wound. It can activate certain programs within ourselves. We we might start think that this is how I should behave now, or dress, or these are now my duties around the house, without even, it's almost like unspoken. They just like kind of something gets clicked in their program and they start doing certain things which probably come from what they observed from their mothers. And here's the thing, yeah, I think the the purpose of our healing journey is not to be perfect parents. Well, there's no such thing, and it's actually it can be very harmful for a child to grow up with perfectly perfect parents, because it doesn't create room and acceptability around, making mistakes, failing, and whatever that might mean in that specific environment and family. But it's about having that maturity to say, hey baby, I just all of a sudden got so angry and frustrated with that mess. I'm sorry for raising a voice at you. Let me just take a moment to like sit down and breathe and take a moment to myself, and like owning up to our imperfections and mistakes rather than try and avoid them. And um, of course, like, there are going to be things that we would like to avoid. But when it comes to suddenly just showing our humanity, the best thing we can do for our children is to model how we can own up to it, communicate it, and then show, actually, here's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to make myself a nice cup of tea and I'm going to give you a nice little cuddle, and I'm going to breathe, take a few deep breaths, and we're going to feel much calmer. We're just going to have a conversation around it. And actually, this is so much better for children. We're modeling the behavior of cultivating that self leadership and emotional intelligence, and how to manage our emotions. Well, which is emotional intelligence, essentially. And this is better because kids do as you do, they don't do as you say.
Amen. I love
Mm.
that. Would you say that a mother wound is a part of generational trauma?
I would, yes. So I'm a little bit cautious when it comes to the word trauma because it's a mental health word. So I'm a coach and I'm a trauma-informed coach. So I've done extensive multiple trainings to make sure that I'm trauma sensitive and I know when it's time to refer, when it's time to maybe make sure there is additional support. Um, but if we consider a mother wound as, my mother was parented in such a way, and this is all she knows, and this is why she parented me in such a way, yeah, absolutely. And I can, in my personal story, I can see how my mother, the way she was parented by my grandmother, it's almost like women in our lineage never had good relationship between them, and we carry it. And I almost feel like there was never it was never an option to be to have like this friendship element, and real element of sisterhood between women in my family. My mom seemed to be always competing with my father's mother, and like I always witnessed certain things, how and certain words, and you know how kids, we read our family energetically more so than somehow consciously, and so I was always feeling that tension between women in my, you know, greater family, like not just like mom, dad, and grandmothers, but also aunties. And it's like, this is so weird. It's like it was never done, to be in a good relationship with other women in the family. So, yeah, I'm definitely making sure that, I'm breaking that cycle, and I don't like the word nice, but I'm kind and encouraging and loving towards women in my, extended family now that I have joined by marrying my husband.
Oh, that's lovely. I'm so happy for you that you were able to, break free and start new, because I can only imagine how stressful it is. I don't have like a similar situation in my family, but my family, we went through a lot. They're pretty aggressive. And baseline. So I get like overwhelmed sometimes because I don't know how to handle it. Sometimes like I get like, I don't panic like, but my brain starts shutting off. Like I could feel it shutting off, and I'm like getting to a point of reacting. Like I don't know how to react. Is this a fight? Is this affection? Like, so
Yeah.
in that sense, I could relate. And I wasn't able to embrace women because I was like intimidated. I'm like, well, what if I get criticized? I don't want to.
Yeah, it's almost like don't show up, otherwise you give them the opportunity to see you and then comment on certain things. And this is so common, and this is where it starts. And later in life, when we want to do something like you right now, you're very visible online. You let yourself to be heard, you let yourself to be seen, and that can feel like a vulnerable experience because you open up yourself to the opportunity to other people to essentially judge you and criticize you. And it's very courageous what you're doing right now, this line of work.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. That encourages me a lot. Okay, so this might be, I really want this to be a gift for the mothers, the ones that are pregnant, the ones that or even want to change their parenting style. Maybe they're not getting the results that they want. How how can we notice in our children that we may be causing a mother wound, and how can we catch ourselves or intervene with the habit that we have that might be causing harm to our children?
I think the good way of thinking about it is going back to basic needs, and that's for our children to feel safe. And depending on the age, but typically kids start gaining some understanding and language around their feelings around like 4 or 5 years old. They typically learn it at school or nursery, depending on the country where they go to. And if if a child is able to voice, "I'm so happy right now," or "I feel angry," or like in their own kiddie way, if they're able to voice, that is a very positive thing. And as a parent, it's a very good idea to say, "I'm so happy to hear that you can say this to me." It means that you have done something right. There is safety. Now, if a child shuts down and again, like the throat chakra is blocked. Now, it might be that maybe they haven't had any education, or nobody raised their awareness around how to vocalize or how even label their feelings. Then it would be a good moment for us as parents to realize that, okay, so maybe we can do something around that, help them voice that so that they understand what anger and frustration means, what happiness means. And can they describe maybe food that they are eating are like, this is, my son recently said, this is delicious. And I was like, this is such a sophisticated word. Well done. Not just like tasty or this is yummy. I was like, oh, this is delicious. I was like, this is amazing. So I suppose just it's like the lack of something would be a good marker, indicator that maybe there is something that we can do about it. So I would say like naming, like feeling safe first and foremost. And the way it can be witnessed is if they can name their emotions, or like, yeah, they kind of like you spot them occasionally to name they name their emotions. If they're telling the truth as well. So I mean, all kids, there's this thing that all kids, oh, they start lying during a certain age. It's actually not lies. They're actually creating something like alternative realities. And a very simple way of checking it is like, I always ask my son, like, did you wash your hands? And he was like, mm-hmm. And I see that cheeky smile on his face. I know that he did. I was like, are you telling the truth? And then he says, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, I will always encourage you. Like, I will never tell you off for, um, you know, like, if you tell me the truth, I will always appreciate it and I will always praise it. So, again, and that comes to safety and trust. So, the child can say and communicate what's coming up for them, and and kind of like say, yeah, I didn't do that. And then it's about your reaction as a parent. Okay, so come on, let's do it. I know it's tough, it's boring, you want to go back to your tablet or your train track or something, but it's got to be done. It's the voice of discipline, the inner mother, that has to be um, part of their psyche going forward. Other things is perhaps socializing with other kids. If you, as a parent, notice that they there's they don't have to like easily enter, like social interactions and like easily just run into the playgroup and playground and make friends with everybody. No, but if they don't leave you and they stay by your side all the time, like maybe it takes time to warm up, and like sometimes it's up to an hour, then it's a good idea just to start working on separation and independence and say, I'm your safe haven. I'm going to be here always. You can come back to me, and then go out there and explore. Come back, then go back into the wilderness. So I think that's something that's very important, creating that independence, because the reason why I'm saying it's important, every time I say something is important, I'm like, but why? But because when they're older, they need this independence to make their own decisions, their own choices, rather than, Mom, what would you do? Tell me what to do. And they can make their own decisions and then own the responsibility that comes with the decision. So own up to the price that they're paying for certain choices, for example. So I would say those few things are probably most foundational and the first thing that just comes to mind.
I love that. So, like, from what you've said, a way that a mother could avoid causing a mother wound is checking if, are you like asking yourself a few questions. One, are you creating a self environment for your child? Can your child feel comfortable approaching you when they feel insecure or unsure? Is there shame, tension, or are you causing guilt for your child? Asking yourself that.
Yeah.
Number three, is your child dependent on you, or are you giving them tools for independence?
Yeah, and that comes at certain age as well. So like after 3-4 years, um, definitely start paying some attention to it. And let's throw in one more, attunement, and that's in that's more asking yourself, like, how attuned do I feel to my child in terms of their needs? And it's essentially like, if they're hungry, are you giving them food, or are you sending them to their room, or are you giving them water? Are you meeting their needs? Essentially. And that's like your own intuition has to guide you here. Like, ask yourself as a mother, do I feel like I'm attuned enough to my child?
I love that. That's perfect. Can you tell us about your coaching program, Becoming the Author of Your Life?
Right. So, Become the Author of My Life, Your Life is the name of my coaching practice per se. Like, it's just the name that I really resonated with. In terms of motherhood healing, I have a couple of ways to support and serve other women. And the first one is very simple, it's one on one capacity. And the way I approach this, usually, I have a conversation with a person who's interested in this work, and we co-create the package that would suit them and the way of working together. And I start in this way very, very intentionally, because from the get-go, even before we started working together, and we might never start working together, but I want to get them into the habit of, this is a partnership. You can decide for yourself what is going to serve you and what is not going to serve you. I'm not here to be your guru, and I'm not here to impose certain elements of coaching on you, but we can very much co-create so that you start feeling empowered pretty much from day one. So that's the first way of working together. And the second way is there's group coaching experience that I have created with another certified coach who has also gone through motherhood healing journey herself. And we're both trauma informed, both certified life coaches, and we created this experience where there is a number of videos to go through. There are 6 modules, and there is a few group coaching calls which are run like women's circles. So you are surrounded by other women. We contract very clearly to create a very safe space. This is what we're here for. You can absolutely name certain things that are very hard for you to name. No one's here to judge you. And we unblock throat chakra, we speak our truth, we go through the journey of motherhood healing together, and you are being guided not just like by one coach, although some people do prefer one-on-one capacity in intimate spaces, and that's fair enough. This is actually something that I preferred at the time, but some women feel that it's liberating to be part of a sisterhood and women's circle and get together, and actually that's a healing element, just to know that you're not alone with this problem.
I love that, because I don't know, I think a lot of other people do too. When you are growing up and you watch like Disney Channel and stuff, and you see like everybody has their own little group of friends. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's great about a sisterhood, because we all want the opportunity to be like, oh, I want to get away, let me have brunch with the girls. But sometimes it's really hard to find supportive women. I love that you're building a platform for that.
It is. It's like, we grew up, I'm kind of generalizing here, but a lot of women grew up watching Sex in the City, and it's about, girl bond. And they had brunches every Sunday where they would discuss their careers, their relationships, sex, of course, lots of sex, of course, and, and fashion brands and like all the girly stuff. And it was so wonderful to watch. And I think now I'm watching Carrie, and I'm like, she's like, yeah. I, I'm kind of maybe like, yeah, like I like her romantic side, but I probably started resonating with other characters more as I grew up and became an adult. But the element of weekly gatherings together, having your tribe of sisters who are there for you, and they're not there only during good times. They're especially there during difficult times, and they're not there to only tell you the good thing that you want to hear, but they're there to remind you that you're better than this. And I know you, and I see you, and I know your potential. And that's essentially embodying that inner mother as well. I'll accept you with whatever is coming up for you, with all the challenges and maybe some internal bullshit that's coming up. But I will also be here to remind you that you're better than that, and about your potential.
Yes, I love Sex and the City, and I love what you got out of it, and that's what I'm hearing about the motherhood and the sisterhood group, like, deal. And but
It's
also
such
like,
a magical vibe.
yeah, and like not being mean, you just actually care, like being honest. And I love that in relationships, because I personally believe if you care for someone and you see them going down a dark road, if you don't say one thing like, hey dude, is this what you really want? You're not like, you're not showing that you care. Like, there's a stigma that people are like, oh, don't tell me what to do. It's like, I just want you to be aware that you're gonna go through some consequences. Like when the Sex and the City crew saw Miranda cheating on her husband. They didn't support her with
Mm.
that. Like, some people have to understand, like, your real friends are not gonna tell you to rob the bank, even if you need it.
Mm.
Like, so I just wanna throw that out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, because this is the quality of a fantastic friend who says, you're better than this. I'm here to remind you about it. And as sometimes friendships break up if someone decides to um, go down the dark path and stay there, and this is their choice. Not to say that they're going to remain there, they might come back, but they also it takes a lot of courage to tell your friends that, look, because you can't be people pleaser and have that courage to say, I think you're doing the wrong thing, here's
Mhm.
why.
Yeah. I think the mastery is in the approach, right?
Totally. Yeah.
If our Matrix members would like to work with you, how can they contact you?
I think the best way is to just go into my DMs on Instagram, just say hi. Very soon, I'm going to be talking more about inner freedom, which is this group coaching experience for motherhood healing and the sisterhood vibe. So you can check out the content that's coming out, just see the vibe. If you want to have a call, we can just hop on a relaxed coffee chat, um, make you feel seen, heard, and understood, and hopefully, like, I get you. And based on that, I will be able to recommend ways of supporting you, and it might not be even with me, so just making sure that I serve you powerfully. And in link in my bio on Instagram, there is also a quick link to book that call, so you can just go ahead and book time that suits you, and we can have a chat and just connect further.
That's so special. So you guys can have your own experience with Kristina, and I totally recommend it. I'm gonna have an amazing week because you give me so much great energy, and I'm excited to bring on our final three, our rapid fire.
Okay.
Tell me about the three most influential people in your life and how they impacted you.
Oh my God, no pressure. Okay, so that would be my father. Actually, my father, my best friend, and he was like both my mom and my dad to me, like two in one. He was great, and he taught me a lot. Um, I'm looking at my books right now because I'm that person. Like, what am I reading right now that's really impacting me? I would say the second person is, I know it might sound a little bit controversial, but I would say Jordan Peterson, because I'm reading his book at the moment. And that's just very present for me right now because I'm working with this question of inner strength and responsibility. And I feel like I'm ready for the next level of owning that energy within myself. So I'm working on that. And I would say number three. You know what? I'm gonna say my mother because she was the most influential person in my life, and it's so interesting. It surprises me every time I intentionally think about it. There was a moment in time when I thought we're not gonna have relationship. I'm gonna quote unquote divorce my own mother because I can't have her in my life. This is too stressful, too tense, too toxic, too unhealthy. And there are no boundaries whatsoever. And she's giving me advice all the time, especially when I don't want it. But we actually had a conversation today before our podcast because she asked to have a conversation on the phone. And I was like, is that a good idea? Let's go for it. We have such a warm relationship right now and very healthy. There are boundaries, there is love, there is support. And she's even asking me, how can I be with you? How can I support you today? And I'm like, holy guacamole, that is just so. Now, all mothers are willing to do that. So I give her full credit for doing her inner work and actually following the lead and realizing, yeah, we need to break that cycle and make sure that we don't take that to the next generation.
Thank you for giving us hope because
Ah,
that's magic words. If you're a mother, if you're somebody who likes to help your friends and give advice, and you really care, consider, I'm one of these people too, and I had to tone it back. Our consideration, our care, we could always ask the people that we want to help how they need to be supported. That's the right way to do it. There's no other way around it. They don't need our opinions on their choices. They don't need our influence on their future. We need to find out what they need. And that's how we could be good friends, good mothers, and healing
Mm.
warriors.
Yeah, and not to turn like, do you notice how sometimes this happens? Like someone shares their challenge with another person, and another person is like, "Oh, I had it so much tougher when this," and it becomes a competition who had it tougher. It's like this is just not productive.
It's
Yeah.
hurtful because you're like, I don't feel better after this. Like now I'm like, oh, is the world terrible? Like, okay.
Yeah, because you don't feel seen. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, you don't care about what I'm saying right now. You only care about your own experience that you are now putting on the table, and it can feel hurtful.
Yeah. What's your favorite color and what do you think that says about you?
Ooh, that keeps changing over the years. I would say my favorite color at the moment is rose gold.
Mm,
And like my jewelry, like the past 12 months or so, it's all rose gold. My notebooks and my pens is getting a little bit ridiculous, but rose gold. And I think it's this very feminine energy, which is soft and yet strong at the same time.
I love it. What's one question you wished I asked you and how would you have answered it?
Oh, it just felt like such an organic conversation that unfolded very naturally. Okay, that's just because it's me. It's like like I like the provoking questions, and I find that when we go into dark places, there's so much potential for self-discovery there. And I like questions around like, what don't you like telling people about motherhood healing journey, or um yeah, what part of your story like maybe you're hiding or something like this, like those kind of dark juicy deep dark juicy potent questions, because it's just the way I am. I think they are always the source of self-discovery. How I would answer them, yeah, was the follow-up question. Damn it. Should have thought of it before. I would say I wish I could say, oh, okay, so I think this is going to be a good answer because it kind of links with what we just talked about, and that's like giving hope. I mean, it's wonderful when you can truly heal and transform your relationship with your mother and become friends and actually learn how to love and care for each other in the way that you've always wanted, perhaps. But this is not something that always happens. And I think it's just as liberating to have the polar opposite, which is actually kind of breaking up with your mother, divorcing her, and giving yourself that permission to say, you know what, I've tried and I'm going to let you go. And I wish you all the best. But I have this freedom to say, I can't have you in my life because it's just not good for my mental health. If something is not good for your mental health, for your inner happiness and ease, it's imperative that you choose yourself over your mother. And that's a very tough thing to say, but it's equally liberating for some women out there who realize I'm doing something wrong. I can't patch up my relationship with my mother. It's not a requirement sometimes, and those cases they still happen. I worked with those cases many, many times where mothers choose not to do their inner work. They choose to numb their feelings and their whatever was coming up for them in alcohol, in drugs, and we cannot be our mother's therapist our entire life. It's not our job. We actually have to have this courage to live our own life and say, as much as it pains me and hurts me, this is your life. I need to attend my life. and address it, because who is mothering my children, or being a good partner to my other half whilst I'm mothering you?
I'm very glad I asked that question. I think a lot of people need to hear that, 'cause we get this. It's probably a term for it, but I was watching Dr. Phil and I learned a new term. And it's like survivor's guilt.
Right? Yeah. Because everyone had it so much tougher, and I turned out to be the lucky one, and that's a huge responsibility. That, okay, now what am I gonna do with this life? Yeah.
Oh, I love what you're choosing to do with it, Kristina, and I'm so happy to meet you.
Me too. It's been such a wonderful conversation, and like such a juicy, potent dialogue.
I can't wait for our Matrix members to hear this.
Oh, brilliant.
To support Kristina in her mission to provide actionable steps on healing one's mother wound, follow her on social media and check out her life coaching program. Kristina's social media links will be in the description below. I encourage you to work with Kristina. Tag her on social media if you have any thoughts or questions. If you found value in our content, please tag us on social media on your insights. All feedback is welcome and helps us serve our fellow Matrix members. To stay up to date with our Matrix mentors and what we have in store for you, bookmark our website and subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel. It was great to have you with us on the Organic Matrix Show, and we'll see you on the next download. Join me and our Matrix mentors on Podmatch. Be a guest and meet many like-minded, inspiring individuals.